Hey, good evening. Today is Saturday, and I'm back again. I'm here to post again because I'm trying. Well, I'm more comfortable than I have been on here, and I'm just on here to talk to you guys. I don't want to ramble because I did have some family members to look at lives, and it was all because of my nerves. And so I was saying the same thing over and over. So I'm just gonna try to pace myself this time and tell some parts of my story. Because as quiet as I am, as to myself as I am, I have a story to tell. And I just want, it goes as far back as, I'm gonna repeat some of the stuff I said. It goes back as far as 2017. I was in really a one-sided relationship. Well, in all that transpired, I found out some things about him that I just couldn't bear to stand no more. And yeah, he was connected to somebody else, I found out, which I had suspicions all the time about that. I had suspicions, so I can't say I didn't know, because people tell you all the time with their actions. They can say one thing, but they actually showing you what they really mean a lot of times. And I'm not bitter about it. I was really hurt more than anything. I was hurt about it because he was the only person that I knew. He was all I had been messing with. And zip on up into 2022. We're all the way between 18, 19, 20. And sometimes I would go back and forth about him, but I had prayed to God and asked him to get me out of that relationship because I wanted out. That relationship was serving me no purpose. It was no good coming from it, and I just needed to separate myself. And that's when, around 2018, I really started separating myself. Because it wasn't easy, but I wanted to do it. I was willing to do it. I saw God breaking me away from him more and more. Mind you, that's what I wanted to do. So I remember where I just broke it off. I broke it off, and we would text here and there, but that was just about it, because my heart had had enough, and I was just ready to heal. I was ready to go on with my life, and that's when I really got in my quiet space with God. I got connected to God. I learned God, and I was grieving. Around 2020, I was grieving. 2019, 2020, I was grieving really bad from this relationship. But it was all like an illusion. And it was like my mind had fell in love with what he could have been, what he could have done. Not seeing him for who he actually is and what he is showing me. Like they say, don't ever let a man or a woman tell you twice that they don't want to be with you. And so a lot of times I'm usually able to step away. I'm usually able, but it was just hard this time because I had invested a little more in this relationship. Even though I was still protecting myself, but I still fell in love with this person. I was in love with him because in my mind, he was who I wanted. He was who I wanted. I had known him since around like 2005. I had known him way back, and we would keep in contact off and on through the years, but I had really connected to him. in late 2010, 2011. And he was all I knew from all the way there, all the way from there to 2017, 2018. And so we finally stopped because I really don't call it a relationship, and I don't even like to refer to it as an ex, because we never came in agreement with who he was in my life. We never even got there. But I was cutting away from him. I was cutting the cord. I was cutting away from him because I needed to. That's what I needed to do. And in my mind, that was the right thing to do. And I was really sad about it for a long time. For longer than I should have been, in my eyes. I mean, and I would beg God to take the pain away from me. A lot of times I was feeling really hurt over this situation because that was all I knew. That was all I knew. But I knew it wasn't good. And I was begging God a lot of times, take this pain from me because I can't bear it. And mind you, around that time, he was stuck in my mind a long time. A long time he was just stuck in my mind. I'm like, why can't I get this man off my mind? And I'm years gone by. And I'm talking about 2 years, and I'm talking about he is heavily on my mind. I'm waking up with songs playing all in my head. I'm like, Lord, and I would get up, and I'm talking about like a pining for him, like a strong, and I was doing all I can. And I remember I would pray and I would say, Lord, you're going to have to help me, because I want to let this go. I want to let this go. I want to cut my losses, and I want to let this go. And this man would continue to be on my mind. And in that, I was reading this book. And this book introduced me to tarot. And I know, and yeah, I started watching it a lot. I started watching it because I wanted to know. And it was like I wasn't praying like I should have been. I wasn't doing tarot in the church. I was watching it. I hadn't been to church in some years. Because my mama always told us, don't play with God. Either you in there or you not. And I got to watching tarot. And these women was like telling my story. And I'm like, why? I can't stop thinking about it. And I would ask God, like I said, I would ask God. And to me, God wasn't hearing me, but I hadn't repented properly. And I was asking, I'm like, why can't I stop thinking about him? Heavily thinking about him all day long, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. But mind you, I was still holding my own. I was doing the no contact thing. I was doing it. But they began to tell things and tell stuff, and I'm like, no, this ain't my story. Which you have to be careful with that, because it's of the underworld. It's dark, and a lot of them on there doing all kinds of things. Like they said, those are familiar spirits that they are talking to. But it knew that, and I didn't know. When you would watch that stuff, you interject your energy into that stuff, and I would feel anxiety and stuff, all this crumbling up in this stuff, and I'm like, I would get so much anxiety when I was watching it, and I would say, okay, I ain't gonna watch that no more. But it's like I get the urge, I get pulled right back into watching it, and I watch it, and that anxiety and that worry and all this stuff was connected to this stuff, because a lot of those times they do things before they even make those videos. And I was like, Lord, I'm finna stop watching this stuff. And I remember I had went a little while, and I could remember feeling better. But he was still on my mind the way that he was. I was feeling better after stopped watching it. And I remember one day it had been a while. I remember I clicked on one of those videos. I clicked on that video and I heard a door open. And it was so prevalent. It was like I thought somebody had came in my living room. And God was letting me know, you have opened that door back up. You didn't open that door back up after you had closed that door. He was letting me know. That was that spiritual door that you have opened. And you don't know what you done opened yourself to. And I remember I cut that video off. I cut it off. And I remember after I cut that video off, I remember, because mind you, while I was watching it, my phone kept stopping. There's so many layers to this story. I would have to sit down and I really want to tell it like I know it, like I feel it, because I want people to see. Witchcraft is so prevalent on the land. People play all in darkness. It's people, the ones that you wouldn't expect to be playing with it, to be off into things that the way they are. But I remember they hacked in my phone. And if you go back on my post, you will see me asking questions about how you know if somebody done hacked into your phone. And I would watch that video and I would cut it off. I remember that's when everything started revealing itself to me. Mind you, let me go back a little bit too. Wait a minute. Hold on, I just lost my thought. I was Come on. Well, you have to be careful. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me what I was thinking, but you just have to be careful. And I remember I shut it off for good because I was in my little cleaning business and I was all doing that. I was doing good. And I remember I was cutting it on then. And I remember how whatever that it had to have been a spirit. It came and it cut the vacuum out while I'm vacuuming the lady house. And you know that cats are very intuitive. And them cats came in there with me and they started walking around me. They were smelling around my purse and everything. About smelling around my purse, saying that because they knew that was there. They knew what that thing, whatever it was, it cut that vacuum off. And I remember getting mad. And I was like, you think you finna scare me like that? And I remember I couldn't cut that one on, so I went and got another one. But I remember I cut it back off. He was telling me this stuff is not safe to watch. It's not safe. People know. I would encourage nobody to get into tarot. And that was me learning all that. And like I told you, I remember I opened that door. And I told God, I remember praying and I remember repenting. I repented and I said, Lord, I'm cutting the cords with it. And I remember cutting the cords with this stuff. And I began to tell God what I was experiencing. And I'm like, Lord, I said, okay. I said, I want you to reveal to me why I can't get this man off my mind. Because I knew something wasn't right. And I remember how I would cry, sob for him. I would cry for him in a way that wasn't normal. And when he would come through, I would stop crying. And I remember after that, I was like, You know when something trying to get your attention, I'm like, wow. He came over there and we got together or whatever, and I was finished crying. And I remember that when I said, what is that? That's what I remember asking. I said, after a while, I cut it all out. I cut out everything. And I remember I started fasting the best way that I knew how. I was fasting and I was praying. And I was asking God, I was like, why can't I get this man off my mind? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? I remember my look started changing, and I was like, Lord, I'm gonna post pictures and show you. My look started changing, my hair started falling out, and I was like, Lord, I'm not vain, but I'm like, you taking my looks from me, you making me what's going on with me? My face was dark. And I laid down. And I remember my son had went to spend the night with my sister, and I laid down. I had asked God, I think before I went to sleep, I said, God, what is this? I laid down. No, I was in the tub this time. I was in the tub, and I seen this woman cooking in the kitchen. And I had remember one of them saying, if you lay down and dream somebody is cooking in the kitchen, that is some kind of spiritual work. That's witchcraft. She was cooking in this big pot. And in this pot, it was dark in there. It was dark in the house, and she was cooking in this big pot, and she was mean. She was mean. She was just had a mean spirit. In that dream, I said, when I was in the tub, I came out that bed. I said, wow, I said, she doing witchcraft on me. Mind you, he had showed me. I asked him, I said, who is this? Who is this? I went to sleep, and I can remember this lady. In my dream, he showed me her face. He showed me exactly who it was. He showed me her face. And I woke up, and I'm still in denial. Because I'm saying, this lady, she was connected to him. I said, the man that I'm talking about. She was connected. I said, it couldn't be. I was like, I done went on with my life. No. I have another dream. I was laid down in this dream. And this lady I was laid down in this dream. This lady thought I was dead. And I remember her. I had on some big shoes. They were big and they was yellow. And they didn't match what I had on. And I was laying there. And she was walking back and forth. Mind you, she had on the colors. She was dressed to take my shoes off my feet. She had on the colors. She was pacing back and forth over me because she thought I was dead. And she said, I want them shoes. And I'm going to take them shoes. And it was like she was walking, she was pacing. She was pacing. And I remember her touching my shoe to take it off my feet. And when I tell you, all hell broke loose. And I remember I woke up. And I'm like, what is that? I started doing my research. I said, what if you dream somebody want to take your shoes off? They want to take your shoes. I said, them was just my shoes. They was no good looking shoes. They was really big, like clown shoes. But she wanted those shoes. And she reached to take my shoes off my feet. And I remember like a tornado. And I woke up out there, and I was like, what is that? I'm having these dreams back to back. I'm having these dreams because God was showing me like that. I was by myself. I was fasting. And I was praying. And I was talking to him. And I wanted answers. And he said if we call to him, he would show us great and mighty things that we do not know. And I said, I go on and I find they said somebody destiny. Mind you, I don't do witchcraft. I don't know nothing about it. I don't even know how it works. Because I have never been into that. I have never been that dark into things like that. I don't know. No, in my mind, I know way, way better. I wasn't saved, but it was some places that I just wasn't willing to go. I never got a reading. I watched it. I watched it a lot. And I shouldn't have watched it because, well, God knew. It is like destiny swap. I'm like, what's a destiny swap? I said, what is destiny swap? Somebody want to take your shoes off. Somebody want to take God's plan for your life. I'm like, no, what? And I'm sitting, I said, what, Lord? I said, what is that? I went to bed. I had another dream. It was like, I remember, it was like Scrooge. You remember Scrooge? He had this, God was dealing with him in his dream about how he was treating people. And he took, this spirit took Scrooge through different phases of his life. And he was showing him, like, you did this, but you could have did this. This thing, I'm going to call it the Holy Spirit, because that was the only person I was letting in. The Holy Spirit, he was like, he said, this woman wants your shoes. And and he was showing me why this happened at this time in my life, and why this happened at this time in my life, and why this is going on this time in my life. And he said, this woman wants to be you. He said, she don't just want your shoe, she want to be you. And I'm talking about, I had a dream that prevalent like that. And I woke up again, and I'm puzzled again, and I wasn't really connecting to it because I didn't know. A lot of times I have had dreams, prophetic dreams a lot, but I never knew. No, yes I did. I always knew God called me for a reason, because there's certain things I just couldn't do. It's just certain stuff I just could not get comfortable doing. And I had boundaries all the time. I had the fear of God in me still, while I was not connected to Him. I wasn't able to do everything that I'm big and grown enough to do, because God always, I had to, God just, my mind wouldn't let me, my conscience wouldn't let me. Hey y'all, how you doing? My conscience just wouldn't let me get into things. And a lot of times when I would go to stuff, even go to parties and stuff, it was like, I don't want to be here, because this is not me. This is not the way. When I go out, I like to have fun. Matter of fact, when the sky starts to get dark, I want to be at home. I like to do everything I'm gonna do during the day. Around 7 to 8 o'clock, I want to be at home. That's just how I do. And I keep losing my train of thought, but I just been laid back and quiet. A lot of people say I have a boring life, but I just ain't been able to do everything that I want. And I remember, I had another dream. He was showing me step by step. And I remember God, when He was dealing with me, I was praying, and He was telling me about Peter, and He was telling me how Peter was so anointed, his clothes was anointed, and people would take his clothes and have his clothes in his house. And I remember God told me then, He was like, make you some oil. And I had started trying to get my appearance back, and I had bought a lot of natural stuff which helped me. I had bought a lot of natural things, and it helped me grow my hair back. I had bald spots in my head. My skin was broke out so bad. I was so dark in the face. And I was like, Mary, did y'all notice me? And they was like, yeah, but we didn't want to say nothing. I'm like, why y'all didn't say nothing? Because we always tell each other the truth. But I had got so black, and I had gained weight that I almost like it was just trying to stick to me. And I remember, they was getting me. They was getting me good. With whatever they was doing, they was getting me. And I had to pray. I had to repent to God so He can comfort me. And I remember God telling me to make some oil, because I was reading up on a lot of oils, and I had some frankincense oil, which frankincense oil is in the Bible. I had another kind of oil, and I had extra virgin olive oil. He told me to anoint my whole apartment inside out. I made that oil. I anointed that apartment. And mind you, I'm still having the dream. He's still keeping me on the up and up. I remember when he told me these attacks were going to be around the clock. And I didn't know what that meant. And I remember that night too, I remember waking up and somebody singing in my spirit saying, I put a spell on you, you put a spell on me. I was in that half sleep state, like when that state when stuff is, the spirit world is real. And she was singing, I put a spell on you, you put a spell on me. And I remember I had to cut it. I was like, I started playing Fred Hammond, No Weapon. And not long from that, I started playing this song. I got up and I started praying then. And I remember my niece was living with me. Nigel was living with me. And I had another dream that this lady was, this same lady, he's showing me her face. He has revealed to me who this was. He was showing me her face. And I remember this lady was going around. She was, because I believe what had happened when I did do what I was doing. I had connected to God, so God broke some things off of me. They was doing things. I remember I started looking better in the face. My hair was growing back. I was losing weight. I mean, a lot of times, even though I was on meds and stuff and I was in the hospital, but all this happened before I even went to the hospital. I remember anointing my house, and I remember God still revealing stuff to me. Still. I remember this lady, she was dressed in black, and she was going around knocking on doors. I'm talking about she had stuff in her hand. This lady, she had things in her hand. She was knocking on doors. She was just almost like she was getting people involved. She was getting people involved, and I had started praying heavily by that time. I'm talking about I had started praying. I had started just getting in God a lot. And she was knocking on doors. And I remember God told me she was getting people involved. She is going around. She is getting a circle involved. Y'all just don't know. She was getting a circle involved. She was dressed in black. He was letting me know step by step what was going on. And I remember that part of me, I had laid it down. But it woke back up, and my intuition and my everything, I was seeing things, it was on 10. It was, nobody could do nothing around me because I heard your motives. I know your motive. I hear what you not saying. I know exactly what you saying. You saying what you didn't say is what I got from you. So, and I'm not going to play. I ain't going to play stupid standing up here. God has always shown me things. But I just kind of went off track. I went off track and started wanting to just in this bad relationship and just laid it down for a minute. But a gift comes without repenting. He never stopped showing me things because he is true to his word. He'll never let us go into nothing blind. And I remember that's when I had anointed my house. I remember seeing this young boy face in my dream. I seen him in my dreams before I seen his face. He was upstairs. Nigel was living with me. And it was like he was upstairs. He had moved up there. And it was certain parts of the day, what I know for sure. 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and around between 9 and 10, it was just almost like rocking. Everything, like my anxiety, everything is going. And I was like, I said, whatever that is that they is sending to me, the man upstairs must be feeling it. And God was like, look, Look closer. Like, look deeper. He showed me him. I went outside. I went to the store. And I got in my truck. And he was sitting outside on the patio. And I was like, oh my stomach just, I said, that's him. I said, that is him. That is him, no doubt. And I remember telling Nyla, she like, Auntie Melanie, no, I don't think so. I said, Nyla, please listen to me. I'm telling you, this boy is up here. He is demon possessed. He is demon possessed. I said, this whirling around. I'm talking about he was playing with my lights and everything, something like a scary movie. You know how the lights be wiggling? He had the ceiling fan wiggling. The TV was blinking. He was almost like putting on a show in my apartment. How he was doing that, I never know. But he was able to do that over my head. And y'all, I got some stuff. And this man, he was doing this stuff. Oh, I said, that is him. And after he found out I knew it was him, he never would say a word to me, but I knew who he was. I was on him, and I remember seeing more go up there. Y'all, it gets deep. It gets so deep. I have never been through nothing like this ever in my life. It gets so deep, but I'm telling you, God gets the glory for my story, because they came to make me lose my mind. They was using objects. They was using all kinds of things to send things down into my apartment, because he had moved upstairs from me. And I believe that the lady from the office was, because I remember telling her, I remember calling her, I said, this man upstairs, I said, I believe this man is into dark things. And she said, I ain't gonna stop him. She was like, what you want me to do? I said, how in the world did they orchestrate him getting over there, getting up over my head? And when I tell you I have a story to tell, I have a story to tell. It gets deeper. And just because I'm standing here right now don't mean that it has stopped. It is still going on today, right now as we speak. I remember she was following me in traffic. This lady was following me in traffic. I have never seen her in person. The most I've seen her is on Facebook, because when he revealed to me who it was, I went on her Facebook page. Even though I had been on there previously, because that's how I found out that he was connected to her. He was connected to her. I'm like, in the dream, from all the dreams I had all the way back from 2010, when I started messing with him. And that's why a lot of times I think it goes back as far as that, when I started messing with him. This lady has followed me in traffic. I know what kind of car she drives. I still haven't seen her in person. And the reason I knew it was her tags are, her name is on her tags. And what made her come and follow me that day, I don't know. But she was following me in traffic. This lady followed me in traffic. Now, I didn't think to get a picture of her tags. When she did, God has given me all this evidence. I got so much evidence on people that I keep to myself until it's time, because a lot of stuff I just don't feel that I can say anything about it right now. But I'm just telling you what I have been through. I'm telling you my story. But God has kept me. He has kept my mind. And he let me know from the jump. I don't care what they do. I don't care how they do it. They don't stop my plan for your life. And he said, you protected more than you will ever know. And that has been my story. And even still, with them doing stuff to me today, I am happier than I ever been. because of God. This I can stand here genuinely and say I am happier than I ever been. I'm more focused. And out of all this, it has led me to start my nonprofit, Broken Healing to Whole, because I want to help. I'm so happy that I didn't let this make me bitter. It has made me better. And I just thank God for keeping me. I thank Him for keeping my heart, keeping my mind, keeping my heart soft, keeping my mind just keeping it. Because you wouldn't believe what is happening and what has happened to me. But God gets the glory for this story. And I thank y'all. I'll be back with some more because it's a lot that I have to unpack. And I'll be back with some more. And I thank y'all for listening. Thank you. Beware. Jealousy is cruel as the grave.